some people real quick. I want to thank the NELK boys.
Oh, the NELK boys just won! Now everyone has to record themselves sneezing on minorities in Walmart to get views on YouTube so Mike Lindell can sell more pillows, prices, white supremacists, dog whistles. Let's go! We got here because of extreme centrism, and if we don't fix that, we're destined for extreme barbarism. And it should frighten you when our leaders blame all of your frustrations on minorities and then promise to deport them. Obviously, this isn't new, but this is the exact bar-for-bar roadmap used by an infamous leader in the 1930s. Like, take a look at this map. If you're a font nerd, you'll probably think, wow, that's a weird font to label various parts of the African nation of Madagascar. Well, in 1940, Germans stole an idea from the British, Dutch, and Polish anti-Semites, a plan to send all the Jews to Madagascar. One might refer to this as mass deportation. Hitler himself approved of the plan, but they quickly realized it was simply too difficult to execute. Like, expulsion remained the central theme of Nazi demographic engineering well into the spring of 1941. And later in 1941, they took a different approach.
When they had died, they were either burnt in these ovens or thrown like vermin into large communal pits.
This doesn't mean another Holocaust is inevitable, unless you're Palestinian, but somehow that was both parties' platforms. We don't have to fall into this trap, though. Like, the future isn't set in stone, and history doesn't have to repeat itself. Like, the ultimate hidden truth of the world is that it's something that we make and could just as easily make differently. A huge swing in the 2024 election was young men getting sucked into the far right. Only 1 out of the top 10 live streams from election night was from a leftist. The others were all far right. And you can blame NELK or Joe Rogan or whoever, but I think you really need to see these graphs. Young men around the world are becoming radicalized at historic rates. And for better or for worse, we have the opportunity to glance into a parallel world of gender relations by looking at South Korea. Now, you might have heard that, women over there have it pretty badly, but it's actually much worse than you could possibly imagine. So much as a hand gesture or an emoji can get you fired from your job. And South Korea boasts the highest gender wage gap of any OECD nation. In 2022, the South Korean president attempted to abolish its gender ministry, and under current regulations, rape is a matter of physical violence rather than that of consent. The government even shut down a proposal to meet the UN framework on sexual violence. Like, these are bare minimum things. But most damning, in August 2024, a 220,000 person Telegram group was discovered filled with young Korean men distributing explicit deepfakes of their coworkers, friends, and family. Let me say that again. Somewhere around 10% of all young men in Korea used AI to generate naked images of the woman closest to them to distribute online. Like, this is very bad. These young men were promised a world filled with opportunity, and the world isn't making good on that promise. They listened to the oligarch-owned media saying that it was stolen from them by a minority group, which here would be brown and black migrants, trans people, gay people. But the country is ethnically homogenous, without many immigrants. So they crucify women. South Korea speed-ran capitalism after the United States violently tore the nation in two, genocided the Northerners, systematically spawned oligarchs out of thin air with US funding who rule and own everything in the country, and now they are the first to feel the full brunt of late-stage capitalist decay. The future feels pretty bleak right now, but it doesn't have to. So what needs to change? Barring an October revolution, we need to fix a few things. Every man, woman, and child complicit in the DNC's utter failure to hear the working man's pleas for better wages, better living conditions, and the total end to our endless wars must be thrown out of power. Once power is reclaimed, we need to repeal Citizens United so billionaires can no longer just buy our elections, implement ranked choice voting at all levels of government. We need more options. Neither party in its current form fights for the working man. and also abolish the Electoral College. Like, it was literally just set up to reward slave states who didn't want to count their slaves as real people. So they gave them like 3/5 of a human counted for the census so they could get delegates, but whatever. But most importantly, we have to fix our goddamn messaging. Like, let me present you with two options: a lot of genocide or no genocide. Every sane person would pick no genocide. But a neoliberal DNC strategist would beg you to see both sides and pick somewhere in the middle. And obviously this is a rather blunt example, but it applies to healthcare, it applies to housing, wages, immigration, everything. It is not extremist to say, I don't want to go bankrupt when I need surgery. Yet we live in the only developed nation that has medical debt bankruptcies, which actually make up 70% of all bankruptcies. And it is not extremist to say my desire to own one single home for me to live in outweighs the desire for some $1 trillion fund to pad its balance sheets. And it is not extremist to say that wages should be adjusted with inflation and that it is a crime that they have not been adjusted in 15 years. Also, we shouldn't have exemptions that allow for slavery. That's insane. It is not extremist to say that when the US destroys countries around the world, causing a mass exodus, that we should welcome in the most vulnerable and end the incessant violence overseas. Do not fall for the lump of labor fallacy. There is not a finite amount of jobs. Anyway, another $30 trillion for Israel. Yeah, of course, I'm upset that Trump won again. But I am far more upset at the Democratic establishment for guzzling its brain-dead neoliberal garbage policies and yet again failing to have a backbone when faced with outright fascism. And for anyone who says, oh, you just complain online, why didn't you do anything? I did, and I will again. I started the first PAC to call for Joe Biden to stop his campaign in November 2023, and high-level Democrats thought we were crazy. I ran a House campaign in 2022 in which I saw the party's incompetence with my own eyes, where they failed to back a candidate who had a real shot at beating a scum insurrectionist. I worked with the authors of the Green New Deal to produce the next iteration of revolutionary climate and industrial policy. And if you are frustrated with the system, I am too. But just remember, the purpose of the system is what it does. The system is not broken. We need a new system. We need to work together towards this new system. So go out, unionize your workplace, get concessions where you can, organize, come together and make friends with your allies, with your comrades, with anyone who will give you the time of day. We have a long road ahead. And if this doesn't work out, I'll just join the NELK boys as the next right-wing podcast grifter. Anyway, another $30 trillion to Israel. It. Let's go.